pretty good idea. The, the
Yeah.
kid had been watching old Iron Chef America episodes, and somebody had made duck à l'orange, and he thought it was the funniest thing. So he came up with that suggestion. So we took the sea duck, we sprayed it orange, put some blue highlights on it, and with my vinyl cutter, I cut out little decals that say sea duck à l'orange on it. It's on there in a
Nice.
couple of spots, and it's pretty fun. We use it at our local field to drop little paratrooper guys, and my 7-year-old in particular loves to run around the field catching paratroopers.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Aviation RC Noob podcast. My name is Joe.
My name is Matt, and we have with us a special guest, Brian Phillips, who's going to help us out with some history as well as just talking about the topic today.
How you doing this evening, Brian?
Doing good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Good, excellent. So this episode 74, we're going to be talking about FliteFest prep, and then yes, Brian has some history. He wrote in with a history segment a number of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and
He listened
yeah.
to our podcast. He even listened. He paid attention to the stuff in the middle somewhere. That's awesome. Yeah, we had put in a request that, hey, if you can help, if you have knowledge of certain planes that you really love and you would love us to highlight us and help us, kind of highlight that plane in our history segment, you can kind of write up some ideas and either we'll reach out to you if you wanted to come on and maybe join us like Brian is today, or even if it's just to have us read it and help us with that. That, we'll obviously let everybody know that you helped us out with it. It's really cool, and I appreciate Brian for writing in. He wrote in a little while back, and we kind of looked through it, and we've been talking since he joined. So, since joined our Discord. So, anyway, we're really excited that you're here, and we're glad that you can join us today.
Thanks.
Now, before we go too far into it, Brian, you had said that you were on another podcast in the past, if I remember correctly.
I was, yeah, a couple of times.
What podcast was that?
So it's a podcast called Practically Tactical. It's focused around responsible firearms ownership and training with firearms. I had taken a few courses with the guys that run that podcast, and we had a good time going over the classes that we took. It was a good time. It was a really good time.
Very nice. Once we're all said and done, if you want to give us a link or to the episode or the couple episodes you were on, we'd be happy to throw those in the show notes just for anybody who's interested in listening to you having been on there.
Yeah, more of your voice.
Okay.
All right. Well, as per normal, we're going to talk about some of the building and activities we've been into, and then we'll get into some community events. We'll let Brian talk about the history segment for a little bit, and then we'll get into the main topic. Brian, do you want to kick us off? Tell us what you've been up to for the past couple weeks.
Sure. So one thing I've been working on is my aviation RC Noob Wonder. Mine didn't quite work out like everybody else's did. I had to make a few tweaks, but that's coming together. Or has come together. It's should be ready for a maiden here pretty soon. It's a little different because I added some wing extensions with some downturn. A little. I know we've talked about the Prandtl D history here before, so I thought it would be fun to see how it would work on a Noob Wonder. So we'll see it. So far, I've only done a glide test with it. I haven't flown it yet, but the glide test it performed very very well. I was very pleased with how it did. It was my 11-year-old son and I were out in the front yard tossing it back and forth and having a good time
Cool.
with it. So looking forward to flying.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. What were you hoping for it to do? And then how would you rate it as being like, what made you feel like it was a good success?
The glide test,
Yeah,
or
the glide
yeah.
test.
So for the glide test, just the main thing is making sure the CG is in the right place, and that it'll have a nice smooth glide, and not pitch up or pitch down strongly, and just behave evenly as you toss it, and have a nice gentle glide down, and it did that.
Awesome. Yeah,
so
that's a
so
big thing. Now, next step is to see if it has that Pro Verse yaw that I love so much.
absolutely, I'm looking forward to flying it with that in with that in place. I'm hoping it'll fly pretty locked in, uh, with that in there, assuming it works right. Assuming I made some educated guesses as to exactly how it should be configured. So because it's not the same layout as the actual Prandtl test aircraft that NASA put together. So yeah, different wing. It's a straight wing. It's not a proper wing. It's got a elevator and everything. So it's a little bit different, but we'll see how she
Hmm.
does. I'll
Hmm.
try to get video for everybody too if I can when I do it.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, good or bad.
in
Let's hope it's
in
good.
addition to that, yeah, oh yeah, for sure. In addition to that, a little bit prior to that, I put together a flight test Flurkin. Only I decided to mess with that one too, and I put motors out at the wingtips. Um, put 3D printed some wingtip pods, and um, did an initial attempt at a maiden, and made a mistake in my launch technique, and broke the mounts, the wingtip pods. So I had to reprint those. It's been repaired and it's ready to go again as soon as my schedule and our weather coincide, to get out and fly it a little bit more. And then
What? Now,
uh,
let me jump in for just a second. Was your
yeah,
mistake the same mistake Matt likes to make, where he throws it directly into the dirt?
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I will say
I
that the
mean, he's
effect
not
was the
wrong.
same.
I mean,
The effect
that's not
was
my
the same.
aim. Yeah, well, it's not my
To be
aim most
fair,
of
I
the time,
didn't
too.
aim for the dirt either, but I hit it.
Well, that's the thing about flying. You're always going to hit it one way or another eventually.
Oh, let's hope it's in a
Yeah.
rolling pass.
Takeoffs are optional, landings are mandatory.
That's right.
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Uh, and then and then the most recent thing, the last few days, I've been putting together the flight test new boom and flirkin.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. They
so
just released
I
that,
think
right?
I caught it. Just I caught the message that they had released it like 2 minutes after they put it up. So I might have even been the first person to order one. So
Oh wow.
Um,
Nice.
I've just got to finish up the electronics on that, and then dial it in, and then it'll be ready to go as well. I'm actually really excited about that one. I love twins with differential thrust. I find them very, very entertaining, and I'm really looking forward to this one because I think it adds some stuff to. I love the way the regular Flurkin flies, and
Hmm.
I think this one's going to add some really really cool flight characteristics.
If you don't mind giving away, I guess, some of the secrets that are in that. I know the original one, I didn't realize, I don't know, I wasn't thinking about it. It doesn't really have a proper spar going through from wing to wing. Um, is this follow that same pattern, or did they revise that so it's a little bit stronger across the wings?
So the bulk of the body is a standard Flurkin, the
Hmm.
vast majority of it, and then the booms are added on, with the power
Okay.
pods on the ends of the booms, and then the tail
Right.
added to the other end of the booms. So the spars are identical to the standard Flurkin.
Okay. So there is
It
no
does have
through spar.
no through. I mean, there is a spar, but it's foam. It's multiple layers of foam,
Okay.
and the way it ties together with the trapezoidal shape of the body,
Hmm.
it very nicely transfers the load across. As
Yeah.
long as you have the upper structure is glued well to the longerons inside the fuselage.
Okay.
I had one that wasn't initially glued as well as it should have been, and it popped, so the wings would flex on it.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I've since fixed that. It flies fine, but the wings just flex a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm
Okay.
going to be a noob and have a noob moment. You just used a word I had not heard before. What is a longeron?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have used that word because I can't clearly define it. But usually my understanding of it has always been sort of like a spar, but in the fuselage that goes along the length of the fuselage.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a stiffener
Now
along the length of the plane.
yeah, I could be using the term incorrectly. Um, my day job, I'm in the auto industry, not in the aviation industry. So,
So the definition from dictionary or Oxford Dictionary says the longitudinal structural component of an aircraft's fuselage.
so I'm at
Okay.
least close.
Oh, yeah.
I was at
It's all
least in the
the
boat.
That's pretty
it,
much spot on.
spot on. Good work.
So not
Excellent.
not unlike perhaps like fuselage doublers.
Pretty close. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
they are
yeah,
effectively a
but
longeron
it's
of
more
sort.
like a rib, like perpendicular to the surface rather
Hmm.
than parallel to the surface.
Okay. Fair enough. Sorry to
Excellent.
interrupt.
No worries.
No, nope, no problem.
All right.
Oh
So it was. Did you do anything else beyond those? Did you fly anything beyond the
no,
initial flights?
I've been trying to get out to fly for a couple of months now, and get thwarted every time. When my schedule is open to go fly, um, the weather is not cooperating, and then when the weather is perfect, then you know all
Yeah.
the other stuff gets in the way.
Don't
Ain't
we
that the
know it?
way of it?
Yeah. Right. Just like
Yeah.
this past weekend, we were playing games together this Saturday. This past Saturday, weather was picture perfect. I mean, the wind was low relatively. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. Not too many clouds. We get to Sunday, and Sunday was gusting to like 28 miles an hour. It was beautiful. Still a beautiful day, but it
Hmm.
was like, oh, I don't know, it's a little rough in the wind. And then we decided, let's fly this thing anyway and see what we can do. But we'll talk about that in a second. Joe, speaking of, what have you been up to in the last couple of weeks? I know some of it, but
Yeah. Well, I actually, real quick before we move on to me, I want to return to Brian's Prandled Wonder. Prandled in Wonder, you said? Oh, Prandled Noob, I see. But
yeah, I'm
Prandled
calling
D
it the
Wonder.
Prandled N because it's the new
Randall M.
wonder. Yeah, N.
Yeah,
Right.
I haven't come up with a proper name for it, but so I'm open to suggestions like Prandolin or something
Or the
like that.
Prandled NW,
Yeah,
maybe.
maybe.
Well, because the Prandled M is the Mars one, right?
Yeah.
That's the M. Yeah, yeah.
So if we call it the NW or the N, then it's the Prandtl Noob.
So, with the Wonder already being a bank and yank, what
Mhm.
what benefit are you? I mean, obviously pro versus y'all, but is pro versus y'all terribly beneficial with this particular design, given that it doesn't have a rudder? It's just a straight up bank and yank.
So on a bank and yank plane like that, if you don't have vertical surfaces to keep it tracking, you'll get the. I mean, you'll still get some. You're going to get some adverse yaw, but you just compensate for it by banking over harder
Um,
and then pulling harder on the elevator. You just compensate for it with a additional input. In this case, I should be able to turn nice, and it should be able to tuck into the turns a little bit nicer. I've noticed on some wings I've flown in the past, that with no vertical surface, that are bank and yank. If you really get aggressive with it, the adverse yaw will send it into a strange oscillation for a second, and you can usually correct it and get back in, um, but it doesn't like it when you get too aggressive with it at once in a while. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've I've stuck my combat wing into the ground a couple of times by being too aggressive and having it kind of flutter out of the way on me. But I'm hoping to tie it in there and see how it does. And the other aspect is if it's done right, and I don't know if mine's done right yet, but it should cut the drag a decent bit. And there is um, it could be a little bit quicker. I did put a Flight Test CPAC motor on it. We'll see how it does.
That's what I'm planning on putting in mine. Yeah.
Yeah, CPAC with a 4S will make it go.
Exactly. And it's an experiment, right? It's all for entertainment and just to see what it does.
Yeah, and learning. You're learning kind of what you can do with that and what you maybe what it doesn't work so well with. If you get anyway, we'll see. I'm eager to see what happens. I'm trying not to geek out on the specifics. Yeah, I'm trying really hard.
Very briefly for some minor specifics. The wing extensions have a minus 10-degree incidence from the main wing section, and minus 10 degrees down, and then 4 degrees of dihedral. I printed some just really basic, modeled up some really basic connectors and 3D printed them in TPU to tie them together.
Okay. Another quick question: the airfoil, is it symmetrical across, or is it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That's all. I'm gonna zip it and let you keep going.
It's a thinner version. It starts at the root, or where it joins the main wing. It's the same profile exactly, and then I taper it down to the tip.
Awesome. I'm eager to see how it flies under power, to see if there should be some Prover show. I'm hoping. I'm looking to see how it goes, and if it does, I will be building your prototype too. Whatever it is you kind of see looks good, I'm going to give it a try too, because I love the way the Wonder flies. I love the way the Noob Wonder flies. It's spectacular, and so to have one that's a Prandtl Noob Wonder, that'd be phenomenal.
I've got I can send you the cut file for the extra sheet.
Oh yeah.
Well, let me follow that up then. When you go to fly it and you're looking for that proverse yaw. So when we're talking about the yaws, the adverse yaw, when you make a left-hand bank turn, the plane wants to turn the plane wants to yaw to the right out of the turn.
Correct.
Right. The nose will want to walk out of the turn.
Yeah. Right.
Kind of.
And so proverse helps to counteract that and keep your nose pointed in the direction that you're going. When you're
or it will actually tuck into the turn.
Okay.
It's actually like a coordinated turn, is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a self-coordinating turn.
So, having been on the ground and flown, and I'll talk about more here in a few, but having flown Matt's Noob Wonder, what are you looking for? Because what are you looking for to say, yeah, that's giving it the proverse yaw? Because when I just had it up in there, maybe I don't have a ton of experience with banking yanks, or using my rudder in general, from the ground. Now, when I did the sims and all, I had to, but I had gauges to help me with that. So, what are you looking for, different from not having proverse yaw? Like, how are you identifying that, yes, this is working? That was a long way to ask that question.
I will basically, when I start to bank it, I will basically be looking for that nose to start yawing into the turn a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I saw with mine. It was the gentle turn, so it wasn't steep enough where it started to slip through, kind of like a knife edge where it slipped down, unless you give it something. Basically, just turn it a little bit. And with a bank and yank, you turned it a little bit. It'll just keep going straight, but at that angle, right? That's what the Noob Wonder flies like. So this will, when it turns that, it's going to take the outer wing and bring the nose into the turn, and as if you had a rudder in it, but there's no rudder. So it'll bring it around into a coordinated turn, which means you can do real awesome, slow, lazy circles and not have any additional input from the rudder surfaces or any control surfaces, which means you don't have additional drag from that.
Okay.
You bank it over. If you roll it up on its side or up at 45 degrees, it's not really going to do much of anything other than go straight at a 45-degree angle until you give it some elevator input to start pulling it into the turn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially with the surfaces we have on the Noob Wonder. There's some pretty big wingtip, flats, and that tail feather really just kind of keeps it going in the same thing. It'll slip a little bit down, but generally speaking, it just kind of hangs in that same direction until you yank it. But yeah, with the Provershaw, you'll turn the little bit and it'll start to make a coordinated turn, and you haven't done anything but roll it just a little bit. And then with that wing, that's what I noticed is on the original Prandtl that I built is it was only the little bits of roll, just a little bit of your roll. If you're doing it hard, it's not going to Provershaw really, not a whole lot. It'll act like any other kind of wing. You'll have to bank and yank to a degree. But if you do the gentle turn, it's going to start. That's where you're going to notice the Proverse. So it may affect like that. It may do something else. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Okay.
So we got to talk more Prandtl. Wait. I'm so excited.
He's not had his Prandtl wing fix for a while, so thank you.
I got to put that 6S in there and that smaller battery, and then find the new balance. Because what I noticed was I was flying it on 3S. I was flying it on 3S, and it is flying at the stall speed. So if it doesn't have a headwind, it won't get up to speed when you launch it. I needed to have either a 4S on it or a 6S or something where it actually have a lot more push to get it started. And I think that was the difficulty with it. I mean, it still gets in the air, and when it does, it's amazing. But getting it into the air is difficult. So I'm curious to see what all happens because it'll inform me. Maybe I make a new one with some other design choices. I like the idea that it's one wing, and then at that 75% mark out, he's going, okay, we're going to do the Provershaw thing. We're going to tilt it so it just does the thing. No transition, just do it. Yeah, which is interesting.
My transition is some Blenderm tape. That's to cover the gaps.
That's awesome. Well, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe. Brian, did you cover all the things you did? Besides helping out a bunch of noobs?
I do all kinds of random stuff. So, when I stuck that twin Flurkin in that day, I also smashed up a E-Flite Concendo Evo. So, that was a rough day. So that was the one time I've gotten out to fly in a couple of months, and I caught a tree with that Concendo, and cartwheeled it into the creek by our field.
Oof.
Were you laughing at the end of it? Was there a smile on your face, or was it more misery and that's a lot of glue I'm going to have to use?
By the end, I was laughing. It took a bit of a high push through the brush to get there. Lots of brambles and stuff. So I had there was some blood involved.
That means
to recover it.
Nice.
So.
Well, good.
But that's about it.
All right, Joe. Let's hear what you've been up to. I know you've been doing something.
Yeah, so went up to your place for a weekend D&D this past weekend.
Heck yeah.
And I had printed off it's 11 by 18, 11 by 17
11 by 17
sheets. So I did the tile prints of the Noob Wonder, and so spent the build night getting those taped together, and you showed me your Super 77 trick, which I'll talk about in a minute, to get it onto the foam board and then cut the pieces out. So it was sort of a quiet night of just cutting parts out and watching Amy fiddle around with her what was that? The Speedster?
Yeah, it's a mini speedster.
Yeah.
She was
Um,
repairing her mini speedster from my attempt at helping her fly, only to have it dump hard into the ground. So she fixed it
Side
up
note,
from there.
that's a neat looking little plane. I
It
like it.
is. She did a good job with it. And we just put a little bit of thrust angle in it so that hopefully that counteracts that downward tendency.
so that was very interesting watching her mind work and watching her try to figure out how to get that done
Mm-hmm.
because she didn't want to rebuild the power pod, and her thought was to move the barbecue skewer in the power pod, not in the fuselage of the plane, but in the power pod. She didn't want her. She had Matt had, I guess, I guess the kit comes with exhaust pipes that are
Mm-hmm.
supposed to sit on top of the barbecue skewers,
Yeah,
and she didn't want
much
those
like the
being
Scout.
she didn't want those being crooked.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't move holes in the fuselage. They could only move holes in the power pod. Yep, Matt's showing them off there. Which was fine, except that she did this barbecue skewer grid inside the power pod to give the power pod reinforcement.
I don't know what she did. I don't know what she did, but it was important that when the barbecue skewer shifted, that
There was a
those
barbecue skewer in the way.
I guess, yeah, but the pipes were in the same position as they were when she started that repair.
Right. And so the difficulty came because when she was trying to change where in the power pod the barbecue skewer went through, that way she could induce that thrust angle by tilting the whole power pod, there was a barbecue skewer in the way.
Yeah, she had reinforced the pod like crazy.
So it was interesting watching her mind work and watching her, turn it over in her hands and try to figure out how to, get around that problem. And ultimately, she ended up just going a little bit higher and going above the skewer.
Yep.
But having been the one sitting there at the bench for an hour staring at a thing, trying to figure out how am I going to do this, it was nice to be on the observation side of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, okay, I'm not alone. Other people do this.
Yep.
Nice.
So the Noob Wonder is coming along. I got a lot of work on it done today. In fact, Matt, I showed you a picture of it. Brian, you probably saw it in the Noob Wonder channel.
That looks darn right done, almost.
Yeah,
it's getting there. It's getting there. I need to run the linkages from the servos to control horns, and there's a couple more. There's the battery hatch to glue on in the top plate, and then secure the wings. I want to see about trying to put the aura in there.
Yep.
So got to figure out how all that's going to mount and fit. I'll say for there being no plans, well, not no plans, no build video for it. And I know you'll talk about that in a minute, but and I didn't go look for a forum build guide. I just started cutting parts and putting them together. It went together fairly straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty much like puzzle pieces that have, well, this tab only fits here in this one slot. So I guess it's oriented this way, which kudos to Spawns, Dan Spawns, for putting it together that way. There really is only one way to really piece it together. So
there is. My encouragement there would be to keep a mental inventory of the various parts, especially some of like smaller parts of fuselage parts. So as you're constructing, maybe kind of slap some pieces together before you glue them to see how they're going to fit all together and where plan how you're going to go about tackling that.
Yeah, dry fit it if you can.
Yeah. Brian, you were going to say?
I will tell you that. Sorry, I will tell you that there are a few ways that if you're not paying attention, there are a few ways to put it together incorrectly. Then quickly realize after the glue is set, or after you cut something, that it should have gone the other way. So if you look closely at mine, in addition to the intentional modifications, there are a few accidental modifications as well.
Nice.
Nice. Which ones, if you don't mind, what pieces were the ones that kind of got? Are they more the bridging between the sides?
The battery hatch, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
Where to cut on the battery hatch
Yeah, that's
was
fair.
probably the biggest one.
Okay. I could see that because it's not the way it's been done before on other planes that we've built. I like it. It's done well, but yeah, I could see getting that goofed up.
Yeah, it functions as intended the way I ended up doing it, but I'm certain I've cut it wrong. But I love the way it works now that once I realize where to cut it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Okay, so you built a new blender, and it looks almost done to the point where you're probably piecing electronics in it and making it look prettier because it already looks good.
Yeah, so that's where some time's going to be invested. I was honestly trying to get it done before 6 o'clock today or so I could maybe take it out and fly.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Electronics. I didn't even get to the electronics, and that was going to take forever. And then we had rainstorms roll through, so no flying today.
Yeah. Well, that's a bummer.
And then
electronics are half the project, aren't they?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then I started on the other Spitfire. I may be stepping away from the mic a little bit, but I got the other Spitfire I've started on.
Oh, yeah.
And so having a better feel. Yeah, this was our podcast one for last year. So hopefully I'll have this ready to go for FliteFest so we can kind of do that again. And I've had multiple pieces of foam that are important bits get heavily warped during the gluing process.
Interesting.
So during the skinning process, I should say.
Okay.
So a year ago when I was doing this, they got all warped. And the other Spitfire that I took to FliteFest showed some of those tendencies. This one definitely warped up worse. But I was very pleased to see that I could stack some things that I know that are definitely flat on a table that I know is definitely flat and throw some weight to them. And they seem to be pressing out and holding, a flat shape.
The flat shape, yeah. Good.
Right, so I've had some weight on them for a few days. I want to be removing the weight from them as I move forward with the Spitfire, and especially the horizontal stab, which was heavily twisted. I'm hoping will maintain this straight shape that it's got now, so it doesn't induce bad tendencies. That's about it on the building front. Now, when we were up there at your place, we did get to take the Noob Wonder out, which was a dream to fly. And also, I am extremely out of practice and scared on the controls.
He's like, Matt, I haven't flown in a long time. Are you sure you want me to fly this? And I'm like, I just trimmed it out, so you might need a little bit of left on occasion because it's slightly rolling to the right, but I know you can handle that. Go to it, buddy.
Oh, thanks for that vote of confidence.
No. I mean, I knew you'd have it, but I mean, I was trying to get it to you so that it was like the way it should start, which is no inputs, get you going straight.
It flies like a dream.
Especially with the gusting that we had. It'd be like, okay, it's about 5 miles an hour, maybe 10. And then also like, 30. Okay, now we're back down to 10. It's like, that is not an easy way to start off the ground, or on a hand launch. That could be pretty rough. So, I just wanted to make sure, I knew you'd have it. And the thing flies like a dream, like you said. Go ahead. Tell us more about your flight.
I think it's a little squirrely on the hand launch. That was probably due a lot to the headwind because it wasn't really getting away from you as fast as you'd expect it to. And so, anyway, plus we were catching it directly at our sides.
Yeah, it was a crosswind at that.
We had a couple guys forming up at the end of the field, doing some stuff, and so we had we were trying to launch at an angle across the runway, but you're still getting hit from the side. So, like I said, it handled it like a dream. And it flew great, which I didn't do anything too crazy, but watching you fly, sir, was an absolute pleasure.
Okay. So before we go, did you do anything with your Flurkin?
No.
Okay. But seeing one in person, did that help?
Sure. There's just enough things going on that need work on. But I did finally get the nightstands finished up, so I have no major honeydew project that's sitting there that if I transition into working on an airplane could be, why aren't you working on that? So that's nice.
Flurkin is not, Joe. If the Flurkin is not done by FliteFest, I will sit you down at FliteFest and sit with you until the Flurkin is completed, so that you can go fly it.
Can't do it if I don't bring it.
We'll just get you one. You'll build it right there.
Then I'll force you to fly one of mine.
Jeez. Okay.
I think I'm up to 4 Flurkins now.
Wow. Okay.
What I find interesting is that a lot of people at FliteFest last year were having a very hard time getting it in the air. Once they got it past the hand launch, everybody's like, this thing flies great. They loved it, right? And I think I put a little bit bigger motor or I made sure I had a 4S on it or something like that, so that way it would have a lot more off the line go, so that way it get up to speed faster. And I think that made all the difference because I never had an issue. And I think Kiax, when he did his, he said the same thing. He had a little bit larger motor and you have to put like a 3300 3-cylinder or whatever in the front because it needs a lot of nose weight to balance right, at least the original. And you need it has to balance right, otherwise it's not gonna fly right. So he was kind of surprised at how much he had to put in there. But I remember him saying, he's like, but I had it set, and once I had enough go, so I just punched it, and once it got going, it was awesome. And then he goes, but getting off the line, you need an extra oomph, or somebody's got to really huck it.
It's a really good technique to get in a Flurkin go. Not to hijack you too much, Joe, but there's a great technique for the Flurkin. You treat it like a discus launch glider. You do a wingtip throw where you just toss it.
You straight arm your hand, grab it by the tip, and you basically rotate out as a discus. And it feels weird, like but when you release it, it's about level. And at that point, it's got enough speed, and usually you can go from there. Because you don't want your hand you don't want your hand in front of that prop.
No. It takes a little to get used to, but it is a really excellent method. And once you get the hang of it, it works. It works every single time. And it doesn't take a lot. That's actually what I messed up on the twin motor one, because that one's significantly heavier and it needed more of a toss. And I threw it like a regular Flurkin. It just wasn't enough.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah.
Last thing, because I mentioned a few minutes ago, and I don't want to forget it before we move on to yours. Your Super 77 trick for putting plans on paper. Or putting plans on foam. I'll be honest. You've kind of talked about it a number of times in the past for how you do it, and I never paid too close of attention to what you were saying you were doing, and I kind of did the noob eye roll of Matt's got to make something complicated. That's the trick, buddy.
So was it complicated?
No.
Spray the foam with one light coat and then just start placing your pieces.
Specifically, what we did was I taped all my tiles together. And what would have been better if I had done it where I could see if I had done a better job marking the edges of like where the corners of the pieces. So where the corners of the foam board need to absolutely be to encompass all the parts. So we would lay the plans tiled together, face down on your pad on the back porch.
Yep.
And mark out, okay, here's a corner, here's a corner. We need to make sure that the foam board encompasses these marks so that all the parts show up on the on the foam board. And then, yeah, you took a rattle can of Super 77 and hit it with a light dusting, and then we would, sticky side down onto the back of those plans and make sure that they covered. And then once it was tacked, we would, once you stuck it and pressed a little bit, you flip it over, and then we would pull it back off in areas to just get all the bubbles and ripples out and make sure it was mostly flat and straight.
Yep. And
then start cutting parts out. And that was fantastically simple.
And quick.
And beat the heck out of me tiling the plans together, cutting out the big
individual pieces, making loops.
And then fine cutting those parts out, and then taping all that to the foam, and then having to do all my, because when I would do the 50% scores, because I would have to mark those before I cut the whole part out, otherwise the plan then comes off the page. I was going through and putting little ticks.
Holes.
Yeah, like I was sticking my knife down in each of the red perforation spots to mark out.
If you're going to do that, I would say get one of those pumpkin, the patterners for the pumpkins, and use one of those on the red lines, because that'll give you the pattern you're looking for, and it'll be a heck of a lot easier.
I'm cheap.
No, but those are you can get them at the dollar store around Halloween.
But having done it with the Super 77 put on, and then you can cut the whole part out and the plan stays stuck to the paper, so then you can go back and do your score marks, and these are parts that need to be ultimately removed and this, that.
And the paper comes off. The paper comes off afterwards. It's not permanently stuck. You're not putting the adhesive on both sides because it's a contact adhesive. Basically, if you put it on both sides and you let it cure or whatever it's happening, you let it tack up, and then you put them together and press it. It's supposed to stick for a long, long time, right? But I only do it on one side because I don't want it to stick forever. I just want a light coating to hold it until I've cut it. And it does, it's so much quicker. It saves a lot of aggravation. So I'm glad you got a chance to try it out. And I'm glad you like it. I mean, look, it could be not your thing, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It worked well.
The light coat being a key there.
Yes.
I can speak from experience that a heavy coat will ripple the paper pretty significantly.
Think about if you're spray painting the foam board, right? You do one light coat, almost like a misting, and then maybe you come back later with 3 or 4 of those. But the misting coat is the key, because if you do any more than that, say goodbye to your model. You might as well have just ruined it. And nobody really wants that. So you're doing the same kind of deal. Quick mist and let it dry. Let it do its thing. I'm glad that worked out. Let's see. Oh, I have one more thing, and I can't remember it. So if it pops up, I'm gonna come back to it.
Well, it's your turn anyway, so.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what it was that I wanted to talk to you about something. That was it. When we had a chance to come back from one of the errands we were doing, we got a chance to stop at my favorite stomping ground for the hobby store. Went to his hobby. What was your impression of the traditional hobby store? That's what I see it as.
It was very interesting to walk around and just see all the stuff that is. So there was plenty of planes and plane stuff, but there was also the crawlers and RC cars, and he had the model train stuff in there, which
in the back.
Trains are an expensive hobby,
They can
but they also seem to retain their value as long as you keep them in good shape. So there's that. But it was great to walk through and just to be able to see what one is. because
Yeah.
I don't have anything like that in my area.
Mm-hmm.
If I was doing something balsa related and I needed a specific piece, like he had the bins of certain size strips and chunks, or he had entire, balsa blocks and,
Mm-hmm. And the
um,
monocoat to go over it later.
oh yeah, monocoat and decal stuff and paint and, all kinds of wheels and, which I know being in business and dealing with other businesses, he had all the Spectrum stuff. Um,
Yeah, he did.
which
All the
is,
Horizon Hobby stuff and a couple
yeah,
Hanger 9 and all that. It's pretty typical of most of the hobby stores that I know about. But
yeah,
all right. Well, good. I
but
just wanted to kind of get your impression because that was another thing we kind of did together, and that was kind of fun. You got a chance to actually meet Alan. Um,
yeah,
you've
Alan
heard me
dates
talk about him.
back to what, episode 6 or 7 or so.
If
When
that.
when you did a little interview with him and we spliced it in, so that was nice to finally put a
He
face
was
to him.
he was our first interview.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So very good. All right. Well, let me go through my stuff pretty quick because I would really like to get a chance to talk to Brian and hear his history about the F4 Phantom. Um, I ended up putting together the almost all of the 300% Noob Wonder. I've got a couple things
That
as I'm
thing is
piecing.
huge.
Yeah, so I had the fuse kind of done and ready for you, like before you got up there, but I didn't, and I was hoping to get the skin on the wing. So I had the what are those? The box bars were done and ready, and I had glued on, I think, the formers for the nose section and the tail section, but I hadn't really got the wing skin to wrap around. So I was trying to figure out what that guy was going to do with that. And you guys were able to get there a little earlier than I was planning. I needed that. I was like, I need that hour to finish that up.
Surprise!
And I was like, oh, that's okay. We'll get it done. So during the build night, if you were there, you probably saw me putting together this wing, this monstrosity. And what I found was basically I marked out the edges of where the spar are and then the cross pieces. Then I pulled the spar off, and then I put glue in down as fast as I could possibly go because it cools down so darn quick. And I put it down and I put weights on it and I put weights on the weights. I had like a 30-pound cat litter bag on top of. I think I have a scout, like one of the airplanes, bind and fly kind of airplanes. And so it's a big square box that's kind of rigid. So I put it on the spar and then I put the 30 pounds of cat litter on top of that. Hopefully I didn't damage the plane. I don't think it did. So yeah. So then I did that to the other. So those were attached to the bottom half. And then I glued underneath like 2 or 3 at a time of the back spars. I tilted it back down because those back wedges are pretty stiff. And then I held them one at a, like 2 or 3 at a time, pressed down, and I worked my way across. And then I went to the front, and where the lines were, I kind of ran it all the way up to the groove in the center. And then I folded the whole thing over and I held it tight and waited for a minute and a half or 2 minutes or whatever until the glue was solid. And then I could fold back the whole top half. And then I just glued the living daylights out of the top and just went as fast. I think I went all the way to the spar, and then I left the top of those triangle back halves, and it was mostly closed at that point. I only had like the top skin kind of lifted just a little away from the triangle. So I kind of flipped it over, figure out where they were, and sort of glued as best I could, working from the inside to the out, because it was easier to kind of get, as you went out, it was easier to get the glue gun in, so it was easier to work more of it. So once I was done, all I had was that back seam, and I kind of glued it there and pressed it, and I taped it, with some masking
Painter's
tape
tape.
or whatever, painter's tape or I had masking tape. I couldn't find my painter's tape, but same idea. And I held it and let it go, and I did the other half, and then I got the 2 wings together. And thank you, Brian, for connecting us with Lee, and making sure we had those carbon fiber spars on hand. So I put those 2 together, and boy, oh boy, I didn't put the 30 pounds of cat litter in the center to double check the capability of acrobatic giant Noob Wonder. Because I think I figured out that if the center of the fuselage weighs 5 pounds and with a 6 times factor safety for acrobatics, which is typically what's used, a 30-pound cat litter bag in the center would effectively be the same as the combat load during flight. And that would guarantee that if that fits and that works on those wings, I'd be good to go. We could do all the things with that motor.
That's a lot of weight.
I know. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So seeing it together. Right. And then of course I worked out the spar, which is basically like a U-shaped box, right? And then I inset an inner box, and then I put like this, like I had done with the spar, kind of had an inner strength box with trussing that's around the outside of it, and then an outer skin kind of wrapped around the truss, so that it spreads that weight across the whole surface of both the inner and outer boxes. So you have two fairly rigid structures, but with the trussing, it completely makes it a rigid, non-torquing structure. So you don't have any twisting. And that was kind of the point. Like, I don't want it to twist. If we deflect a surface and the whole wing starts to twist, now you don't really have a predictable surface, and we can run into big problems. And I'm not looking to have our airplane smash into the whole crowd at FliteFest. So at least not because the thing fell apart. I'd like it to be, if it has to happen, I'd rather have it be for some sort of brownout or who knows what. But, and I don't want that to happen either. I want it to be solid and be able to fly it like a dream. So I think we will. So I got that far. I was able to put the tail feathers, the horizontal stab, and the fins on and kind of fit them on. And they fit great. And I think something's, I don't know if it's off, but I at least need to double up with the horizontal stabilizer and probably put a carbon fiber spar in there just for good measure. And I'll probably just do braces for the fins. And then all I got to do is control surfaces. And I think I'm ready to start putting that son of a gun, start putting it all together.
And then servos. You got to get some heavier duty servos, right?
Oh, no, I already have them. We're ready.
Oh, okay.
Ready.
You're already
sir.
on that.
We're ready.
Servos.
I have 25 kilogram servos. So those are the main ones. And I think we have lighter. I think we have lighter duty ones that should still work pretty well. That we got from our motor donor. And they're about the same size. They're a little bit lighter, but they should still work. So I'm looking forward to putting them in and giving them a check, and I hope they don't fail. Like, I hope they don't get over torqued and quit, because that would make it very, I feel like I should put in like emergency brake things, so that if it starts going in a dive, you hit the button and it like butterflies open, and it's just like, it slows the whole thing down, so you can like a little parachute almost. That was the other thing I thought about, is if it's really going bad, that we build a small, like a giant parachute, but a small parachute that rockets out or whatever, just like pops out. And that way we can just cut everything and hit the button, and the parachute pops out, and it acts like the private planes have the emergency parachutes basically. And have one for those planes. That way, if something gets in terrible trouble, we can at least have it come down in a hopefully safe manner. So I'm considering that. I know that the plane can take the weight. I mean, as it is, it's like, what is it? The wing loading is like half a pound per square foot or something like that. It's way like a third as light as the lightest glider loading. You look at it. Yeah, it's stupid lightweight. So really, we may have a problem where it's too light. I'm predicting that with our batteries, it will last. I think the motors sip like 40 amps maybe, and at a 5 amp hour battery, we could be up there for a while. So we got that. I did put together the build video today. So I have another 100% Noob Wonder that is 100% ready to go. Battery, motor, servos, everything's connected. It's all built. It's all done. It's ready to go. So I think I'm going to put some color on it that's going to set it up for Logan. So we'll get that set up, and then of course you and I got a chance to fly. And so I did the initial flight. I'll call it the second flight of the Noob Wonder. Took it out again. I made the adjustments that I knew I needed to do from last time. I sent it up to the air, and they weren't quite enough, but they were certainly a lot better than they were the first time. So I corrected for some of that. We brought it down. I made more adjustments, and I got it very close to flying, like just hands off, just let the sticks do the thing, and it should fly straight. But it kept rotating just a little bit to the right. So I didn't quite get it there, but it was really close. So then I was basically
It's
checking
also
out
really windy.
It was windy, like we said. It gusted like crazy. So I wanted to test the speed envelope. I wanted, with the headwind that we had, you could almost go at a walk across the field if you're going upwind. And then of course, it's like, well, and the thing is I have a Sunny Sky 2220 motor that's a 1140 kV, and it's a 9x6 prop. So it's a pretty aggressive prop. And it's pretty strong motor. And I was running it on 4S, which is rated 4. And I said, okay. And so we had three different sizes of 4S batteries. We had a 2200 4S, we had a 1300 4S, and we had a 3300 4S. And the CG is pretty much like dead over the CG marks. So the batteries get stuck in almost the same place, which is actually really a nice feature about the Noob Wonder. And then I'm trying to think, what do we do? So I we were flying around at like regular cruising speed at maybe 25% throttle, somewhere in there, which means I'm like, okay, well, let's see how fast. So I brought it up to 50 and then started speeding across. I'm like, oh, and so I'm like, well, let me get the trim straight out. So once I got the trim, I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. So I crank it up to like 80 or 100, and I just reached straight up for the sky, and it just kept going and going. I'm like, I could do this.
Vertical.
I could go all day, and it was cruising too. It wasn't like it was like slowly going up. It was busting a move. Yeah, it was going straight up. And then we basically cut the throttle. I let it to a hammerhead, come back down, and then we'd bring it down in. And the control surfaces never lost. And that's one of the things I like about this. The regular 9-gram servos, this thing was cruising, and at no point did we lose the ability to control the control surfaces. It's not like we slowed it up for anything. Like the Dragon, the foam board Dragon, where when we cranked it at 6S full throttle, we lost control of the elevator. So we had to slow down to turn or to bank, to turn the elevator up. I think we had to roll. That was what it was. We could still get enough elevator to kind of get out of a dive, but we couldn't roll, so we had to like slow it down to roll. It's great. Point it in a direction and crank it. So it had a lot of that, and we went full tilt across the field. If it weren't so gusty, at one point I did skim the grass, but I was afraid to get too much lower than about like 10 feet off the deck, because a gust stops and all of a sudden you're eating dirt. So yeah, we just had a lot of fun. It was really fun to just spend time with you at the flight line. I know Amy was there with us, and the kids didn't care. And then we had a nice little treat. Like once we were done, we kind of brought it in. We tried the medium-sized battery, then the small one, and then we tried a big battery. I don't think the Noob Wonder performed any differently in any of those battery configurations. Like it could take it and keep going.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. And then the last little bit is like, as we were leaving, we had one of the guys, we just went to an air show to see the 3D acrobatics. And then of course there's one of the guys who's putting together his 3D plane. And of course he's been flying since he was like 4. So he just busted out and did all the things. They were like, holy cow, that guy's talented. He just had a good time with it. And it was nice to see, even in the gusty wind, So,
yeah.
Well, anyway, so yeah, we had a good time. This was a pretty good weekend for sure. Let's move on, because I know I don't want to take up all night of Brian's night. It's starting to get late, and I know Brian would like to probably go to sleep at some point. I do want to remind everybody our next build event is May 26th at 8 p.m. on our Discord server. We have a link to that. We also have an invite to our link in our show notes, so make sure to go check that out. Be part of our community. Brian, you joined us not too long ago. What's your impression?
podcast?
Of the Discord server.
The Discord of the Discord server in general. I really enjoy it. It's a fun place to be with a lot of like-minded people, people that enjoy the hobby and aircraft in general. It's fun to see what everybody else is doing. It's fun to, throw out silly things and have fun. I've I've found that I really enjoy it.
Excellent. Yeah, you definitely seem to take a liking to it. I know you've joined us on a couple of build nights too. What did you think
Yeah.
the build nights were going to be versus what you ended up seeing?
Um, it was pretty much exactly what I expected. Um, it just people chatting as they're putting stuff together. I didn't have a lot of expectations. Just a kind of a community, and everybody asks questions come up, and somebody says, "Oh, hey, I got this new thing, a new flight controller," and three people jump in. "Oh yeah, tell me about it, because I was thinking about getting one myself," or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the thing is, right? And whatever new thing that they've discovered or learned about in the process. And it's really fun to see everybody sharing, and that community sharing of ideas and things that they've stumbled across in their hobby journey.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, good. I appreciate that. I just know that you kind of stumbled onto it not too long ago, and the impressions are fresh. Um, Obviously, we had a chance to talk Prandtl Wing, and that made me happy. So, always good
But
stuff.
I didn't know a lot about it the first time we talked about it, and it definitely piqued my interest in much the same way it has done for seemingly a while for you.
Oh,
I
yeah.
found it
Since
I found it very fascinating.
yeah. Hey, did you go back and listen to the episodes with Red Jensen?
I sure did. I
Okay,
sure
good.
did.
Excellent.
And I went and listened to a whole lot of um, talks that Albion Bowers has done over the years that are on
Yeah.
YouTube and other places.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So grateful for those two. Perfect. Okay, well then I guess now we're back. We're at the point where we start talking about our history, but this is going to be your boat, so I'd love to hear from you. Let's learn about the F4 Phantom, right?
very
What can you
cool.
tell us? Can you tell us, Brian?
So I'm no historian, and not an aviation expert or anything. Just a guy that loves airplanes. And the F4 Phantom is one of those key planes in at least in American history, but certainly other countries around the world. Um, just the basics of it. I mean, it's a two-seat twin engine multi-role fighter. It was built by McDonnell Aircraft, later turned into McDonnell Douglas. Um, it's been operated by pretty much all the combat branches of the U.S. military, and the Air Force, Navy, the Marines, and at least 11 other countries. Um, and there's been over 25 different versions of the jet. I mean, this thing has been everywhere. Um, it's served tons of different roles over its life. Um, there was over 5,000 of them built, um, and I think it first went into service in 1954. I think is when the first one flew,
Yeah,
and
it was
they were
shortly after World War II, I think.
yeah, after Korea, just a little bit after Korea.
Okay, right.
Um, and it was a very late Generation 2 jet, and rolled in and was a Gen 3, considered a Gen 3 jet. But it served in Japan. It served all the way up until 2021. So they've been flying. They've been flying for a long time. Um, it's if you've seen a Phantom, if you know aviation at all, if you've seen a Phantom, it's unmistakable. It's a very very distinctive shape. It's got these big box inlets on either side of the cockpit, the two-seat cockpit. It's got a flat low wing. If you look at the bottom of the aircraft, it's perfectly flat all the way across the midsection of the airplane. And then the wingtips have a pretty pronounced dihedral, which is uncommon for combat jets.
Yeah.
And then and then even stranger visually, uh, the uh, the tail, the horizontal tail, is not horizontal. There's a significant amount of anhedrals, or it's tilted downwards, kind of shrouding the exhaust from the twin J79 turbofans, which are, it's got two of the same engine that the F-104 Starfighter had,
Oh man,
which is pretty significant. Um,
that
the
means one of two things: either it goes crazy fast, or it's crazy heavy, or both.
It's a little of both. Or in its early days, like from '59 to '62, the early models just absolutely obliterated 16 different speed and time to altitude records,
Wow.
and most of them weren't touched until the F-15. With the F-15 in 1975, they made a concerted effort to go out and break records with it,
Mm-hmm.
and they and they really did. Um, uh, that project was called Streak Eagle. If anybody wants to go dig into that, or maybe we'll touch on it on a future history point
Ooh,
or
writing
but
it
yeah,
down
Hint,
right
hint,
now.
wink,
Phantom,
wink.
yeah, the the Phantom was definitely the the muscle car of its day, the equivalent of a muscle car. Um, it 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 could, there were so many different roles that they put it into. It was an air-to-air fighter, air-to-air, air-to-ground. Had a ton of different bombs that it could drop. It was in the days of the missiles um, when the U.S. government or the U.S. military decided that the missiles were going to be the way of air combat going forward, and that they were very dependent on the missiles. So the F4 initially had no cannon, no gun mounted to it, and they they were saddled with some very strange restrictions on how they could engage in combat over Vietnam, and the Phantoms were not effective at all, or not very, not nearly as effective as they should have been, because they couldn't use the missiles the way they were intended. And so, starting with the F4E Phantom, um, they put the M61 Vulcan Gatling gun, which was later used in many other fighters before and after. It's
Hmm.
a 20 millimeter Gatling gun that shoots
Oh, man,
6,000 rounds a minute. It's just insane
it's
what it can do.
ridiculous.
It's very important because if you have an aircraft crossing, if someone's crossing your path and you only have a fraction of a second to get rounds on target, you need to have that rate of fire in order to get one or two rounds to hit the target. So it's very important. But the air-to-air victories went up notably once the cannon was refitted back to the F4. Um, I'll say one of the really interesting roles that the F4 had. It wasn't the first one to do this, but it was the most prolific over time, and it continued to do this through Vietnam and even into the Gulf War in the early '90s. But it's called Wild Weasel, and I don't know how they got people to sign up, pilots to sign up to do this job, but basically they would go out and they would troll for uh, ground to air missiles, or surface to air missiles. The SAM missiles. They would go out
Yeah.
and they would just advertise to everybody, anybody and everybody, hey, we're here. Come on, I dare you to shoot at us. I dare you to shoot at us. And they would carry these missiles. Initially, they were Shrike missiles, and then later uh, they got a more advanced version called a HARM, high speed
Hmm.
anti radiation missile, and those would basically seek the radar for the surface to air missiles. So they would wait till these SAM sites would flip on their radar, turn in on them, and fire these Shrike and or HARM missiles later, and try to knock out as many of these SAM sites as possible to protect the rest of a strike package that would be coming in, a bunch of
Right.
bunch of fighter bombers or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Open up the airway for an attack.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And yeah, in Vietnam would have been A6 intruders or F-105 Thunder Chiefs or something like that to come in or more F-4 Phantoms with bomb loads
Hmm.
to keep them out of there. And one of the interesting facts about the Shrike in particular was when they would go out at night, the Shrike, the rocket motor on that missile had a ton of phosphorus in it. And I don't know the reason why, but what I do know, it was notorious for if the pilot would accidentally look off to that side of the aircraft as they were firing it, they would be blinded for a period of time
I was gonna
while
say
they
that
tried to
that
get their
burns
night vision back.
that burns crazy bright.
Yeah, yeah, they were incredibly bright, and it was kind of notorious for it. But it was really fascinating role they
Oh.
had. The Another interesting story was that I had heard about some years ago that in over Vietnam there was a an F-4 pilot, Captain Bob Pardo, was kind of notorious for this story. Um, he and his wingman, whose name I don't have off the top of my head, but they had been shot with some anti-aircraft fire while they were over target over North Vietnam somewhere like 60 miles north of Hanoi, and they realized they were losing an awful lot of fuel, and their wingman was losing even more fuel, and they were trying to figure out a way to get both aircraft as far as they could back over the border so that they wouldn't be captured and become POWs if they ejected over enemy territory. And The wingman realized that he was just almost out of gas and he wasn't going to be able to get anywhere. And they were trying to figure it out for the longest time. And eventually, what they came up with is they had him drop his tail hook, like for landing on carriers or on a
Hmm.
bad runway. So they dropped the tail hook, not the gear, but just the tail hook. And Pardo's F4 came up behind him, tucked up behind him, and jammed the other plane's tail hook into the base of the base of the windshield on his aircraft, and
Was
he
that
shoved him.
did that have a where was the refueling? Was that kind of where it refueled or
No. I'm trying to remember where the refueling port. I believe on the Phantom, the refueling port's on the back,
okay.
behind the rear cockpit.
Okay, so it
But
was over behind all
it
the
was at the
pilots.
base of the windshield, yeah.
Oh,
So
crazy.
that's a real strong point of the front of the aircraft. The radar, the very nose cone is usually fiberglass or something like that, something that's
Hmm.
transparent to radar. And so there's some structure right there at the base of that windshield. So he tucked right up against that tail hook and pushed him for something close to 90 miles,
Wow.
and to get them back over the border into safer territory. It's amazing, and there's kind of a famous someone did a painting of it years ago, and you can see the two Phantoms with the tail hook jammed up against the nose on one of them. It's a pretty great story. Um, One other another really cool thing about the Phantom is it's the only aircraft that both the Blue Angels, the U.S. Navy Blue Angels, and the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds have flown the same aircraft, and they were flying them at the same time for quite a number of years through the late 50s and into the early 60s. Excuse me, the late 60s and into the early 70s. Apologies.
Right. Well,
Um,
somebody's in their car going,
I
"Hey,
got,
come on, what the
yeah,
heck?"
yeah. So,
Hey, if you are, you can send your complaints to Joe
plans
at
to
aviationrcnoob.com.
Whoa now.
perfect, perfect.
Yeah. No, hey
Um,
Joe, in
yeah,
case you didn't see, I put an example of this in the chat chat window there, so you can see the push.
Oh, I was just linking a picture of the push into our show notes.
Nice, good idea.
perfect, perfect. Good call.
Go ahead. Anyway, keep going.
Um,
This is
yeah, and
interesting.
I just to touch on a couple of the basic specs on it. It's 63 feet long, about 38 and a half foot wingspan. those outer wing panels with the dihedral, they fold up for mainly for the Navy versions for carrier space on a carrier deck. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting note: there's at least one case, maybe a couple of them, of pilots accidentally taking off with the wingtips folded and still successfully flying around and being okay.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and empty, they weigh about 30,000 pounds. Max takeoff weight is more than double that at about 62,000 pounds, which is insane. That's an insane operating load. Um, those we talked about those GE the J79 jet engines. They each make about 11,000 pounds of thrust and mill power, and that bumps up to about 18,000 pounds of thrust with afterburner. So especially for the time when that was new, um, that's uh, that's muscle. Um, and the J79, it was a slightly different version, but they use, if anyone's familiar with the F-104 Starfighter,
Mm-hmm.
it was the same basic engine family that was used in the F-104, but only a single one, and that was a Mach 2 fighter.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. It was one of the first
uh,
ones of its time. Matter of fact, I was at the museum. They
yeah,
had an example of one out in Boise, Idaho, and he said they've actually put a protector over the wing front edge, leading edge, because people cut themselves on how sharp that is.
yeah, yeah. A local museum has one of those F-104s, and it's just amazing to look. And the wings are just tiny.
Yeah.
It is made for speed.
Yeah, it sure
Um,
is. So how
so
fast did these
you know,
go?
yeah. So they see the Phantoms topped out around Mach 2.2. They didn't often get up to that speed, but they were capable of it. They had a thrust to weight ratio. I know we always talk about that when we're building our small planes.
Mm-hmm.
It was about 0.86, so it wasn't up to 1 to 1, but it was among the highest of the jets for its day.
Okay.
Um, and the the normal ceiling, it could get up to about 60,000 feet. Um,
It's pretty high up there.
Missiles, yeah, the armament, it was mainly for air to air. It was mainly the Sidewinder, AIM-9 Sidewinder, the early variants of the Sidewinder,
Mm-hmm.
um, as well as the AIM-7 Sparrow, which is an early uh, mid-range radar seeking missile. And then with the E model, they brought that Vulcan cannon, the M61 Vulcan. They put that into it, which really made a difference in the air-to-air combat, especially given the rules that they had to follow for engagement. And then air to ground, it could carry darn near anything anything that was available. Um, all sorts of different free fall bombs, air to ground missiles like the Maverick, and then the anti radar missiles that we talked about a minute ago.
Awesome. It sounds like a pretty varied armament regiment. It
Yeah,
seems like it.
it could do just about anything. I mean, and it did. I mean, there was reconnaissance variants, the air show variants we talked about with the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds. They were used as target drones later when they didn't know what else to use them for.
Wow.
Um, yeah, all kinds of stuff. Just a really varied history. It was the workhorse of the U.S. military for both the Navy and the Air Force and even the Marines a little bit uh, for for decades. And then you'd see the same sort of thing happen with the F-16 after that, and even into today, where that jet, the F-16, starts to see the same kind of widespread use for all different roles. And then we see the Air Force and the Navy starting to transition that again towards the F-35.
Awesome.
So
That is some. That's a lot.
yeah,
It's like
and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. I'm it's there's just so much with it. It's really fascinating to me, but to me at least, obviously.
no. It's and honestly, it's one of the more striking airplanes. FliteFest has an incredible Master Series build that um, that has been put together that you can buy a kit for. It's relatively expensive. You can pretty much buy one that you can build together, or you could probably buy honestly a ready to fly kind of foam. What is it, injection mold foam? One for almost about the same, but I mean it's a beautiful bird. It definitely makes an impact in the sky.
Yeah, and the flight test Master Series one that I believe it's a John Overstreet design.
It is.
Um, it's very very faithful. It looks absolutely fantastic. I think it's a twin 70 millimeter EDF.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to get to touch anything like that in a pre-molded foam, I think you're significantly going to pay significantly more.
Yeah, you probably will. You have to have the full build out, but yeah, it's definitely something worth looking at. Look at the build video that they have. It's pretty involved for sure. But I mean the build looks like it's built like a brick house. So that explains
Not
it.
a simple build.
No,
Not a simple build.
not your
It's,
first,
it's
second, or third build.
yeah. It's a challenge.
Yeah, but it's cool. It looks like it's worth it. I've also put a link to it in our show notes down below, or wherever the show notes are for you to find. I've also put a link to a balsa version. Although it's set up as a glow, I'm sure you could probably find an equivalent ADF that you could put in it at this point. Probably using a similar power pack as the one set out for flight test. Because they're about the same wingspan. I think they're about the same weight or close to it. So you can look at that and then see which one you'd like to build. I know some people really enjoy building out of balsa or other materials, and then others like myself just can't seem to get away from foam because it's just so quick, easy, and fun.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for doing that history segment. And as always, when we do these history segments, like you say, we only but wet the whistle, as it were, when we're talking about these things, because even obscure aircraft, there's so much to learn, but especially like a primary workhorse that this is. There's going to be so much information, so many missions they flew, so many things they did, that all we really can do with these history segments is just pique somebody's interest. Give them a little information about it, let them know what that plane was, and somebody is going to go, wow, that sounds fascinating, I want to learn more. And then you go off and do your own research, and this becomes somebody's favorite airplane. So,
And I know people do it. The Phantom is just an iconic fighter, and anybody who's going down that rabbit hole, I recommend going back and looking at what video is available of the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels flying them. It's some really really great looking stuff.
Yeah, it had a really long service history.
Yes.
I'm still kind of amazed. Everyone's like, "Oh, it was flying up until like not too long ago." Like, and it's like that ago. Shouldn't be. That was
Japan.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, 2 years ago, Japan didn't retire theirs until 2 years ago.
Holy crap!
Wow. And
it's 50 plus 70 years of service, almost 60 years, definitely.
Yeah. That's almost B-52 territory.
Yeah, let's take a minute to think about the lifespan of these things for a moment. How long they're in service, how long they're used, and some of it is they're damaged, they're replaced, new ones get made, but there's ones that get used for decades. I mean, the F-16 now has been in service for a long time, but especially the F-4, how long they're in service, like the quality of build that went into them, the quality of engineering, the maintenance schedules that are on these things, and you get into one and it's still decent technology, but are almost archaic for a modern thing, but they were state of the art at the time, and how long they've lasted compared to a modern vehicle that we put her around in and we get, 10, 15 good years out of. Some people get 20 years out of a vehicle. Um, and I know there's vehicles that are older than that. I've got a 73 Super Beetle, but it's not on the road every day. That thing hasn't run in a decade. So,
Yeah. And an aircraft like this, they see upgrades over their service life. They constantly get, because they they end up being so vital to to the roles that they get into. And if there isn't a replacement in the wings, no pun intended, um,
ah,
they actually it was pun intended. Uh, if
Well done, sir.
if there's no if there is no replacement, it just has, it has to keep working. So they'll put new wing sets on them. They'll go back and refabricate them. And it's these iconic aircraft. It's the Phantom, it's the B-52, the F-16, the A-10 Warthog. These are all just, and the F-15 Eagle. These are iconic aircraft that are so good at their roles that they just keep soldiering on for decades beyond what other aircraft would have been able to do.
hmm yeah, the A-10 Warthog being a prime example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, nothing else can do what the Warthog does. At least
no,
not the way it does it.
no,
That's a different show.
Yeah,
You already did that one, didn't you?
we did,
we
we
did
did.
cover it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Look, but there's so many planes to cover. We haven't even scratched the surface. It's so ridiculous. So in that vein, if you are interested in putting together some sort of history and you want to send it to us to review and reach out to you, you can send it out to the Aviation RC Noob. Wait, I should know what this is. Hold on. I knew what it was. Aviation RC Noob at gmail.com.
There you go.
Yeah, give us, even if it's just a synopsis, and we'll talk to you a little bit about it further. Or if you have a whole thing and you'd like to help us out with our history segments so that we get more of these in here, we'd love your help. We'd love to reach out to you in our community and see what you guys can come up with. Brian, you did an amazing job. I appreciate it so much.
I appreciate that.
And one of these days, we at one time had an updated list of the planes we've covered. We need to update that so we can post it and say, here's what we've already done.
Right.
So,
It's a lot of fun. I encourage others to do it, and if you guys will have me, I'll definitely come back and talk about planes I like even more than the Phantom.
Yeah, definitely. We would absolutely enjoy that. You did a great job. I know where our next subject is FliteFest. Are you going to FliteFest?
I am. Last year, I brought the family out for one day. It's about a 4-hour drive from where we're at, so we just could kind of pull it into a one-day thing.
Yeah,
And
start early.
we had an absolute blast. Just so much fun. So this year we're gonna borrow an RV and we're gonna come down for the whole thing. And I've volunteered as well to help out where I can. And I think we're gonna have a good time.
I'm sure you will. That's awesome. So I can't wait to see you in person when we get there. So
well,
speaking of that,
let me extend an invitation to Brian and piggybacking off of that to everybody who comes to Flight Fest. We'll be in the campsites. Feel free to swing by and see us anytime.
Yep.
Come by and hang with us in an evening, and we'll talk more planes and more history. But we'd love to have you, Brian, swing by the campsite and say hey.
and if you can't, or if you're at least put in where you have a FliteFest segment, put in where you're at. If you're a listener and you'd like to kind of see what's going on, I mean, we're gonna post where we're at. We hope you all stop. We're trying to get some flags set out so that we can at least make it easy to find us. We're probably going to be near the tree in the back on the left side. That's where we've always seemed to end up year after year. So we'll probably be somewhere near there as well this year. So I know if you're in an RV, you can be way the heck down on the other side of the whole deal. But I hope we get to meet up with every one of you who comes out to Flight Fest, who
Mm.
listens. So, and Brian, definitely let us know where you're at. We'll make sure if you can't come up to us, we'll try to get ourselves out to see you
For
and your
sure.
family. Absolutely. Good.
So transitioning to going to Flight Fest, I want to preface this. I always say preface, but it's preface. I want to preface this with restating, I think, what I said after last year's Flight Fest, which was what I had learned and taken away from it, which is show up to Flight Fest with a plan, be prepared for what it is you want to do. So, last year for Flight Fest, I showed up and I was like, oh, I'm going to fly my, Spitfire. I spent so much of Flight Fest finishing my Spitfire and, not doing a lot of flying because there were things I needed to do that weren't done. I didn't go prepared for that. Now, some people can just knock out a build in no time and get a plane up in the air. I'm not one of them. So, yeah, Matt's pointing to himself. He can knock out a build. Short of the electronics, those will take him 3 weeks.
Although today it took me about 20 minutes.
There you go. But what I learned after last Flight Fest was, for me, what I needed to do was know what it was I wanted to do at Flight Fest and basically show up to Flight Fest ready to do that. If I want to spend the majority of the time flying or if I want to fly a lot, I need to show up with planes built and ready to go. Maybe short doing some configuration in the transmitter, what you can do sitting around the campsite. But if I want to fly, I don't need to show up needing to build a plane to fly. I need to have 2 ready to go because you want to crash one. So I'm hoping to have, at least 2, maybe 3 ready to go for Flight Fest. Minus, that's not including a giant Wonder, which I hope is entirely on Matthew to do, but I hope we get 2 of those made. So thank you for that.
We'll get 2. If I'm almost done with the one now, and I've been nothing but busy, the next one should be much simpler.
If you're wanting to build, well, just bring all your build materials, have an idea what you want to build, or grab some speed build kits. If it's socializing, great. But whatever it is, have an idea. Especially if you've been before and you look back at the previous year, say, man, I wish I had done more of this, or I found myself tied up with too much with this and not able to do this other thing that I wanted to do. Show up prepared to do what it is you want to do. That was my takeaway, and that's what I'm aiming to do this year. So, let's talk about what we need to do to prep for Flight Fest. What we need to take. We always the important things at the top of the list are we're going to be camping out there, so what do we need? What should you bring and be prepared for? Tent camping. Matt, fortunately, the first year that I took my tent had my little pup tent, which I tried to put a massive mattress into, and he ended up inheriting that for the week. I'm glad that slept well for you.
Yeah, I'm glad it fit well in my tent.
Mm-hmm. And he gives me a hard time, but I brought a mansion last year because by dadgum, that thing was going to fit in my tent. But sometimes it rains, so go ahead and spray your tent down with the what is that stuff, Matt? The sealant.
Yeah, it's like a sealant water repellent thing. You make sure you get a couple of the spray cans, and you make sure to spray it down. Also, get some seam sealer on the seams because that's another spot for water intrude. But once you've done that, you put a couple coats of both. Yeah, that tent is good to go for probably about 5 to 10 years before you need to redo that.
The key being, if it does rain, don't touch the side of your tent. A lot of people don't know that. Because once you touch it and that water breaks through, you're not going to stop it. And you're just going to have a lake in your tent.
Okay, so, prepare yourself for camping. Have something that you can either eat easily out of a thing or plan on going to go into town, although there's not much in town. Or you can go, you can go, there's a bunch of vendors, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we did a bunch
if they
of that
come out
year.
that day.
Yeah, and sadly, when it gets rainy, they're like, well, I'm not coming out. And you're like, oh, shit. I need to eat. What am I going to do now?
Mm-hmm. And
I would recommend definitely checking your camping equipment and cooking equipment. If anything you're going to be using there, check it before you leave.
mm-hmm.
Check it before you leave home.
Run
Make
it
sure
once,
everything
see
is
what you're
as you
missing.
intend it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because it will, if you don't, it never fails. You'll open the tent and one of the poles is missing, or you'll open the tent and there's a tear that you don't have the repair kit to fix. You'll have a busted pipe on your propane stove, or whatever it is. It's in Murphy's Law says you'll have something if you haven't checked it.
Yeah, if you haven't checked it, it'll be a problem. If you check it, there'll be no problems.
It's fine. Totally fine.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're planning to cook, so Matt and I have kind of talked about a little bit. We got to do some more talking about what we want to do for food over the course of that, because I don't want to have the expense of the vendor trucks all weekend or all week, but we're definitely going to end up hitting them a couple times. And they're decent food. I just don't want to, pay out of pocket for every meal.
Yep.
So,
Heads up.
you have to plan around the limitations of what you're walking into. The tent sites do not have electricity. So if you have a generator you want to bring, cool. There's also not a ready access to a lot of water. So they've got hand washing stations when you go to the bathroom, but that's about it. They got some shower trucks that they roll out there, but you're not going to be washing dishes in the shower truck. So be aware that you're not really going to have a lot of water to wash dishes and to do things. So plan around that.
Unless you know a guy with a camper or something. I'm just kidding. No. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely plan on that. Make sure
Hey,
that
Brian!
you have. Hey, guess what? We got all our dishes. Do you guys have water? Yeah, no. No, that's not the way to do it.
Well, even the campers don't have water or sewage hookups.
Yeah, there's no hookups. Hopefully they ran in with enough, or can go out and kind of switch it out. Yeah, I don't know how all that works. I haven't owned a camper, so.
And for the campers, a public service announcement, and this is for everybody's benefit, and not poo-pooing on RV users or just vehicle drivers in general, because it wasn't just the RVs that got stuck. Well, there was a vehicle or two that got stuck in the past. When it rains, pay attention to what the red shirts and the orange shirts are saying. And if they say don't get in your vehicle and move, don't move your vehicle. The area can get very muddy very quickly, and that is some very slick mud. I've seen a 4-wheel drive get stuck out there. It wasn't really it was 4-wheel drive, but it didn't have the right tires for it. And it's not terribly deep mud, but as vehicles get going, it just churns it up. We saw an RV get completely stuck out there, and that just jammed it up for everybody. So, pay attention. If it's raining, probably an idea not to move the vehicles, especially if the shirts start saying, hey, please wait until the field can dry off. It's also worth remembering this is somebody's private property and their private airstrip. It's a courtesy they let us go out there, and when we start, tearing it up because we want to get out of there, we, mess up the roads, we're tearing up somebody's property.
Yep. And it's got to come out of the FliteTest budget and the festival budget to fix it. Yep.
So, with that preface and service announcements out of the way, what are we bringing, Matt?
I have a tradition of bringing everything and the kitchen sink. And the first year I brought way too much. And then the next year I brought way too much and my kids. So it was even more too much. And then I scaled back a little bit. And although I also brought the SR-72 and a couple other, what am I bringing? This is ridiculous.
And we also had a wild Jesse in the back seat.
Yeah, we had a wild Jesse. It was fantastic. Good times. We also, but as I go and I'm like, I don't know how much more I want to bring than a bunch of Noob Wonders and the giant Noob Wonder. And if I end up deciding to build out the manta ray that I'd been rolling around in my head, I would really love to have an underwater air show, as it were, where you have like jellyfish planes, turtle planes, manta ray planes. There's a shark, baby sharks and mama sharks, get a little bit bigger. I didn't get mine to fly, so I'm really disappointed because I was hoping to have that and then make a bunch of them and say, here, go fly it. Um, and I thought that would be a lot of fun to have a combat, like an underwater air combat. I don't know, but maybe that's Flight Fest next year, if we can pull that off.
Sharks and dolphins in combat.
That's it. That's what I'm talking about. The sharks, dolphins, jellyfish, turtles, manta rays, all the good things. It'll be a good time.
Take a nut ball and make it into a turtle.
That's what I'm talking about. No, the one guy built a turtle.
Did he?
Yeah, he built a flying turtle.
Yeah, I think I
pink.
remember that.
Yeah, it was a pink. I think he bought the pink foam board. Like there's some that are like this black foam board and there's a white foam board. There's another variety that had pink, and I think that's all I could get. So he bought a bunch of that and he made a turtle out of it, and it flew great. Real slow, kind of turtled around the sky. It was actually really cool looking. It was just part of what inspired me. He reached out to me not too long ago. I think we caught him at the very end of last Flight Fest. And I'm going to blank on his name because I'm awful at, preparing that kind of stuff. But he reached out and I said, are you going to bring the turtle? He says, yeah, I'm going to build another one. If I don't bring it, I'm going to build another one. I said, have you thought about making any plans? And he says, that's what I really need to do because it is a lot of fun. And I've had a lot of requests. And I said, well, if you need help, let me know. Take a bunch of pictures and I'm sure I could help you put together a plan set that other people can go take and build with. So if you're listening, reach out again and see what we can put together. Hopefully I can do it with enough time for you to have avid builders bring their plans to Flight Fest and put them together there. That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, I don't know. Just seemed like a fun theme.
Mm-hmm.
A fun adventure in what is possible.
Well, my hope, and we've kind of talked about it a bit in the last episode, at this point, my hope is 2 Noob Wonders, my Spitfire, and the Flurkin if I get it built in time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Giant Wonder.
Oh, I want to bring my Leprechaun, or the one I call the Clerican.
Oof, that's a big one.
I don't know if I'll have time to fix it up, though. It did crash really hard. Like, it went straight down. So, I don't know if I'll have time to rebuild it, but I hope I might. Although I don't know that we'd have enough room in the vehicle. It's a big plane. It's a big plane. It's as big as the Noob Wonders. I'd have to say.
It's healthy sized.
And
but
then,
it looks good.
Yeah. Yeah. So you bring the batteries, you bring battery chargers. You need the field box tools at the minimum. If you're hoping to build while you're there, you need to bring at least the battery and power system for whatever you're hoping to build. Maybe a plan set if you've already got it printed. That way you can kind of just get working when you get there. X-Acto knife, all the tools we kind of talked about last time actually, are all on the list of must brings. Bring the box. We're going to bring stickers,
Yes.
mugs, and
Oh, yeah.
and we have another couple things that we're thinking about. If you're in our community, Brian, you were talking to Lee from Windcatcher RC, and I think you guys were talking about basically seeing if we can't possibly see if there's enough interest they have a Gladiator wing. It's an EPP foam combat wing, right? It's hot cut out of EPP. So it's a true airfoil. It's quick, simple, easy to build. And he's willing to give a pretty good discount if we get enough people kind of willing to buy it. My thought is if it's all the people who are going to Flight Fest want to order one of these, he can send the whole package to either you or me, and we bring it to Flight Fest and we just make sure we hook up. We pick a time and a date, and we just make sure everybody gets their wings. As I understand it, it goes together stupid fast, and it's a fun wing to fly. And again, it's great for maybe not a beginner, but if you've flown once or twice and had success, you can probably fly this thing because EPP is incredibly forgiving.
Yeah, it's a great second or third plane. Um, my local club, we use them. We fly them in combat all the time and stick everybody else's planes into the ground on a regular basis, and just they don't. There's
Just pick them up.
there's no damage. It's incredibly resilient. You just pick them
Mhm.
up and throw them back up in the air. So very very forgiving. They the build is not bad at all. I mean, just you do some slicing and you glue in some carbon reinforcements that come with the kit. You
Mhm.
glue in the motor mount. Probably only thing that takes a little bit of extra work is the reinforcement for the ailerons or the elevons
Mhm.
is uh, Lee suggests the goop method where you use a little bit of the goop or E6000 glue
Right.
um, and um, and use that as the reinforcement. So a lot like the hot glue hinges on flight test
Right.
designs, but it works a little better with EPP with that kind of glue,
Yeah. The
and then covering it, putting some film over the top. But you can do that with the packing tape if you really wanted to
yeah.
for a quick build.
Yeah.
And
Packing
it's
tape or doculam.
yeah, and I think like the kits are. I think Lee's talking about like $40 for the kits. It was like 20% off, and they're
Yeah.
not that expensive to start with. So I think it's about $40, and I think he's even willing to put together like a power pack kit to go with them if anybody wants that too.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Definitely. And then by grouping it together, we'd save on any kind of shipping, and then that we just
yeah,
basically bring it in for to distribute to people.
yeah,
The payments would all
and
go
I'll
directly to him, so we don't have to worry about any of it ourselves. So.
exactly, exactly. And I would any of them that were going to Flight Fest, I would pick them up from him, and
Hmm.
and take them. I'll have a ton of extra space in the RV, so
Okay.
it's not like
Perfect.
they're heavy. So
And the other thing is, we're thinking about, Joe and I are thinking about, and reach out to us in the general chat channel or the flight test channel that we have on our Discord forum, or send us an email if you're interested. But I was thinking about talking to the Hangar RC and ordering a number of kits and having them so that we can bring the speed build kits of the
Noob
Noob
Wonder.
Wonder and have them available for purchase directly there. That way, if you see ours fly and you really like it and you want to give it a shot, they go together so quick. I mean, I think mine took 2.5 hours, but I was talking too much in the middle of all of it as I'm trying to build it. It takes about 2 hours to put together at total. And
Mm,
it's really simple. So
yep.
yeah, I was thinking about doing that. That way we can have some options. Again, if you really like it, that way you don't have to worry about getting plants or anything. Yes, they're free. Yes, they're there. But when you're at Flight Fest, that's almost an impossibility. So having a pre-cut kit would probably be pretty helpful for some. So um,
I do
well,
want to say two things on what we've been talking about. One, we've not said it yet, but it's now
oh,
appropriate. Hi, Lee. Lee is in here in the
hi
recording
Lee.
channel, just
Hey, Lee.
muted up, but he popped in and has been listening. But he says that the DocuLam comes with the kit.
Oh, even better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, it does.
Cool. You
And
didn't
so,
say that. Jeez, Brian. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I missed that.
um, and then there was something I was gonna say with the Noob Wonder. I thought,
The Noob Wonder kits.
oh boy, I don't remember.
All right. I'm sure it'll come back to you.
Yep, it might, but
Okay.
yeah. And on that tangent for a second, we
Yeah.
do leave the podcast recording channel open for people to join just without permission. So they can't turn on the webcams or speak, but they can listen. So Lee popped in. So Lee, glad you were able to pop in and hang with us and give us some helpful information in the side chat.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Also, let's talk about, are we going to be, a lot of what we talk about is being part of the event and volunteering, because it is one way to really kind of engage with the rest of the community in
Mm-hmm.
different fashions, whatever you kind of like. I know, Joe, you've kind of been the was it the parking lot chauffeur, amongst other things. You've been running the carts around, being
Yeah.
part of that crew.
I never mind doing that.
It looks like a lot of fun. It also looks like it could be somewhat tiring after a bit, but you get to meet everybody. You're some of the first faces that everybody sees when they get there.
Yeah. I mean, I was telling you last year that there was a dad-son combo that I ran back and forth a couple times because they bring a plane in from the car and wreck it and then be heading back out to their vehicle to put that one away and grab another. And I'd catch them on the way out and drive them out and go ahead,
Sure,
Brian.
that wasn't me, Joe.
It might have been. I don't know. Do you remember seeing me on a golf cart laughing?
It could have been. It could have been. I didn't really know anybody last year when we showed up.
Well, did you catch multiple golf cart rides in and out as y'all were crashing planes?
We did. I only crashed one plane though. Well, two if you count the Gladiator wing in combat. I crashed that one quite a few times in combat. But there was no damage.
Well, then you might have ridden with me. You might have ridden with me. Yeah, so mostly it's just been the golf carts at this point that I've been dealing with, but I've had a good time. I know we've got a little bit of other plans this year. I don't know if the Bloody Wonder build counts as part of the volunteer schedule.
No, that's separate. That's why that's why I kind of listed separate. But those are that's another event that you and I are definitely going to be part of. We're going to be helping Dan with his Bloody Wonder build tent. So he's going to have, I think, at least one time, if not a couple times, that they're going to have some, basically the build tent open. And if you want to try and build the Bloody Wonder, which I suggest and recommend, as that was one of the first planes that I really just went, wow, this thing flies great. Oh gosh, I don't think I can handle this. But it's a great, easy build. It has a big flight window, much like the Noob Wonder, and it's dead stupid simple to build. It really goes together even faster.
So how's that working if somebody wants to build that or partake in that build? Is there kits that are being sold that they can grab to work on, or what's happening?
So what FliteTest does is they have donated all the foam and all the laser cut kits. So basically they have kits there. You just have to sign up for the event. Basically there's a sign up sheet and then you show up that day. And then what we're going to do is help people make sure that they're having success with their build.
Well, that's awfully nice of FliteFest.
Yeah, yeah. And they've also put it on their schedule and all that kind of stuff. Let me see. I'm looking at the schedule now. Where is it? You can keep going, and I'll find it.
So while you look that up, I think this build and the volunteering it goes along with something that Josh Bixler and a bunch of the other guys, Lee and David, they repeat it over and over in stuff that they're in. That one of the major purposes of this whole thing, if not the most important, is bringing people together.
Mm-hmm.
The whole hobby is a vehicle for bringing people together, and this build, the volunteering, all these other activities, all this stuff that's going on, it's a great way to connect with people, connect with new people. And I haven't volunteered there in the past. I've seen how it works though. And I will be volunteering this year, or I am. Nice. I have already volunteered for this year. I think it's a critical thing for keeping the hobby alive, keeping it growing, especially in light of all the FAA shenanigans going on as well.
Mm-hmm. And you get a T-shirt to boot.
I think it's the total people bonus. Who are volunteering that we've already set out.
Yeah, it's so.
As in, if you're going to build one, you don't get a T-shirt with it. Is what I'm getting at.
Oh, I meant volunteering.
Sure. Oh yeah, if you volunteer at the event, you get a free T-shirt.
Yeah, you get the volunteer T-shirt. And we've said it after last year's FliteFest, but leading into this one, volunteering is entirely optional. A lot of people, there's nothing wrong with wanting to go out there for the week and just have a great time. But if you got the time, volunteer, because you feel great doing it. You're contributing, you're helping. The red shirts that organize this, having a small army of volunteers under them allows them to sit at the top level and see what's happening and work on everything without having to be down in it and pulling quadruple duty. I mean, these red shirts bust it all week. But doing the volunteer, it's giving back to the community that has given so much to you and to us. So, if you got the time, volunteer, and you're not going to hate it. You when you sign up, you say, here's things I'm interested in. They're going to put you as best they can where you want to be. And, they've not put me anywhere I didn't want to be. And I've always had a good time doing it. So give back, help this thing happen, and have a good time doing it.
Yep. I found the times for the Bloody Baron builds. They are Thursday and Friday, so June 22nd and 23rd. They are from 10 to 12 p.m. both days.
10 a.m. to 12 p.m.
10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And so what we're going to do is I'm reaching out now to FliteFest, the group there, and see if we can't find a time slot for the Wonder Jumble and have basically a fun fly or fly-in time where everybody brings the wonders that they've built. Hopefully all their Noob wonders, and then really any wonder is welcome. And we just kind of have everybody fly.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully it'll be before maybe the first combat of the day, or maybe after the first combat. The one that we don't put the Noob wonders in right away in case they crash. That we have like one nice easy flight with them, and then combats, it'll be a target at that point, as it should be. That's kind of why we're building it.
Yeah, let's go out there and have a wing that is it Alex that calls the combats? What's his name?
No, it's not Alex. It's shoot. Why am I blanking on his name now? What was that?
Stefan called it.
Yeah,
Stefan called at least a couple of them when I was there last year.
He does it most of the time. I think he's got a helper too who jumps in sometimes. But when it comes to the combats, he's usually the one who's emceeing that whole thing. Let's see, the combats start at like 11 a.m. So my thought is if we can pull off like let's see, sometime before 2 o'clock, that's the next combat. So if we did maybe 12:30 to 1 on both days, that would be pretty spectacular. So I'm going to suggest that time as a slot that we just basically, if you have a Noob Wonder or a foam Wonder, bring it out and fly it with us.
Well, here's hoping that we get enough of them out there that they become announced targets.
I'm sure they will.
Take those guys out.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
One will for sure if you put them up for combat.
Yeah, we got to have them. That's the thing is I think that's a big difference between last year and this year. I want to arrive with planes ready to go. I don't want to arrive with parts and hope I can get them done in time to enjoy them at FliteFest. Nope. We're coming with planes ready to go that have all the parts and pieces. I think we both agree that we might have one plane that will sort of finish up there. But I think that'll be about it.
Yep.
You gotta do both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I enjoy building there.
Building is part of it.
Yeah, I enjoy sitting at the table and walking around and seeing what other people are building, because there's some really innovative ideas. Even if it's just like, wait, how did you do that right there? And they're like, oh, well, I use this piece here, and I use a little bit of Blender and a bunch of this and some shoe goop, and and all of a sudden they've got something. You're like, I've been wondering how I was going to do that on my build. This is a great idea. Let me take some pictures and see what we can pull together, because this is what I'm working on. They look at it and they're like, holy cow, where is it? So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a really
the build tents are a great place to get ideas.
Yeah, and there are two giant circus tents that are the build tents.
Yeah,
at least, and they're on the left and right sides. We're typically, if you're looking at the flight field, we're typically on the right one. That's just because that's near where we set up our tents. So if you're going to look for us there. We'll try to be in our Noob Aviation RC Noob podcast shirts. They're blue, and they have our little logo on the one corner. And we may come up with some other shirts to bring with us too.
We're running out of time because it's a little over a month.
If we
But
get the idea this week, the places that put shirts together, oftentimes if it's simple enough, they will put it in and out in less than a couple weeks.
mhm.
I just
Well,
we need to know what we need to do. That's all. We'll do it.
speaking of running out of time,
Oh, darn it.
yeah, I know you and I can go all night, and I had an afternoon nap. But I think we all have work in the morning. This is probably later than Brian's used to being up.
Sorry, Brian.
Maybe not.
I'm good.
Oh, well,
All right,
then
I
let's
was
keep
actually-
talking for 4 hours.
Yeah. I would too. That's a problem. I was hoping we could touch on the power situation at FliteFest. Just a lot of people might not know, um, what's available for building. You got to plug in you need power for a hot glue gun or for charging batteries, etc. And I certainly barely know what's going on in that regard. So if one of you guys could.
Okay.
Sure.
So they go ahead,
ahead.
you Joe. You
All right,
tell.
I got it. So they will have generator trucks out there that you will hear running all day and all night.
Up until about 1.
Do they shut them off?
They shut them off. It finally quiets down at about like 1 o'clock or midnight.
Okay.
So.
So they'll have the generator trucks out there, so you've got power in the tents, to
In
do
the
whatever
build
you need.
tents.
Yeah, in the build tents to do what you need to do. They run heavy duty extension cables, and they put little drops under the tables. I think a lot of times they run a 6-bar or something up to the top. It may not be a bad idea to bring your own power bar if you have multiple things you're planning to plug up. Like if you're planning to run a hot glue gun and your battery charger, and I need to charge my phone, and I need to get my phone backup battery pack going to charge my phone overnight, kind of thing. It may be worth bringing your own power bar. So there'll be power in the build tents. Just you're all kind of sharing the plugs. If you do bring your own 6-bar, if you're worried about keeping it, write your name on it, because it's very easy for those to like, oh, where did my power bar go? It's gone. And nobody does it intentionally, but those things get picked up.
That's a good point. So
Yeah.
bring a marker that you can write your name on it if you don't do it before you leave.
And
Yours that you're writing your name.
what's that now?
Don't write your name on somebody else's power bar.
That's a kind thing to do. But again, it's a lot of it is on the honor system for the most part. It's kind of like we're all of the same community. We're all here to have a good time. Stealing other people's stuff isn't fun for anybody except I guess maybe the person stealing it. I don't even know, but really, that's not the purpose of that. It's like you said, Lee. It's the purpose is to bring people together and create a larger, better community.
Mm-hmm. And the other side of that is, if you find that you forgot something, there's something you need, a tool you didn't grab, you ran out of hot glue, whatever, lean over to the table beside you and ask, because somebody's going to say, yeah, absolutely, here, take it. Do what you need to do.
I want to see that fly. I want to see what you're working on. Get in the air. What do you need?
Yeah, I mean, last year Tinch was handing me a couple props. I think I had to borrow a pair of pliers for somebody one time. I've lent out my glue gun because somebody had the dinky little craft glue gun, and they were trying to do a big run. It's don't use that here. Just keep your hand away from the tip because it's blistering. The hot glue comes out boiling.
Hey, what do we say, Joe?
Hot
glue
hot.
is hot.
Hot glue's hot. So yeah, if you forget anything, just lean over and ask the guy beside you.
It's help too.
Yeah, if you need an extra set of hands or just need an opinion.
Yeah, or you don't know how you're like, how does this thing set up? Why is this doing this? You'd be surprised. There's a lot of people who know more than they look like they know, I guess. And they're like, hey, let me help you out. Or they'll say, hey, who knows this? And they'll shout it out, and there'll be somebody like, oh yeah, I got one of those. Let me show you how.
There's always somebody that knows more.
Yeah,
There's
that's pretty
always
cool.
somebody that knows more.
And there's Wi-Fi there, so you can watch. And the point of that is that all their videos are online on YouTube, so they recognize if you're building one of their planes and you want to follow the build video, you kind of need Wi-Fi. So you're going to have Wi-Fi there. So that's something to consider as well if you kind of weren't aware. They have a store there, so that it is basically like there's usually a vendor or two that is essentially the local hobby store brings essentially their hobby store down, like a portable hobby store, and then of course they have their own tent. So there's ways to get hobby supplies there. Um,
Flight Test store in the center of all of it is well stocked.
yeah, with all the flight
Well
test stuff.
stocked.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yep.
I'm trying to think of what else you might want to know. Also, reach out to all the people you know on the forums and in your communities that you think might be going to Flight Fest, and tell them I'm going to Flight Fest too. I'd love to meet up with you. I haven't seen you in person or whatever. Like let's find a time or something. Like just kind of make an effort. You'd be surprised how easy it is. I remember the first year I went. There's a guy. His name is Bill. He had a green goatee and a green kind of mohawk, and that was his. That was kind of his thing. Was all you saw in his the little avatar was just his his goatee, the green goatee. And so here I am working at the Biltons. I don't know anybody, just like you, Brian, the other year, and I'm like, wait, I know you. You're Bill. Because here, only guy with the green goatee. And he's like, who are you? I'm like, I'm Foamy DM. And he's like, oh, Foamy, I know you. Cool. What do you got over there? And so we started talking, and we, kind of hit it off really good. And he and I have been friends, kind of, I'll call it remote friends for a long time since that point. It was really cool to meet up with the people that you've interacted with in the forums or here in our Discord. I can't wait to meet half of the guys who've told me that they're coming, and I haven't been able to really chat with. So I'm excited. If you're in our forums, let us know you're coming. I'm eager to see everybody.
All right. Brian, did you have any other questions about anything we've talked about, Flight Fest in general? Um, Anything last second?
Unless you've got some ideas how to squeeze 40 airplanes into the RV. Uh, I'm oh, because
Speed
I'm gonna
build
be
kits.
in Matt's boat, bringing way too much and my kids. So
Yeah, yeah. Bring the planes the friends you love, and the planes you don't is the motto, and it's right. Like, don't be whatever you bring. Just expect you will crash and lose in some form or another, and it's okay.
I
If
will
you don't
say
like your
that's
kids, leave them behind, and you can bring a
No,
couple more
no,
planes.
no, Joe, no, Joe.
my kids are all right. I will say that's one of the reasons why I love the foam board airplanes, is because I don't want to be too precious about them,
Mm-hmm.
because half the fun is stretching your limits with them and knowing that if I stuff this thing into the ground, then I'm most likely out $4 worth of foam, and I can cut it all up and do it again. I'll be bringing I have a sea duck. I'll be bringing that
Wait,
because
what is it
um,
called?
I know
It's my favorite. It's my favorite name for a plane ever.
you're gonna make me tell the story too.
I have
Okay.
to. I have to hear it.
Uh,
I want it to be
it
shared.
is
It's amazing.
so it okay. So I built a sea duck, and I was talking with my 11-year-old son about what should we paint it like. It's a little rough. It was one of the first ones I made. The foam was a little rippled and stuff like that. And I said, well, we should build a nicer one if we're going to paint it like the one from the cartoon. And he's like, yeah, you're probably right, Dad. And then he said, maybe we should call it Sea Duck à l'Orange and paint it orange. It's a pretty good idea. The kid
Yeah.
had been watching old Iron Chef America episodes, and somebody had made duck à l'orange, and he thought it was the funniest thing. So he came up with that suggestion. So we took the sea duck, we sprayed it orange, put some blue highlights on it, and with my vinyl cutter, I cut out little decals that say sea duck à l'orange on it. It's on there in a
Nice.
couple of spots, and It's pretty fun. We use it at our local field to drop little paratrooper guys, and my 7-year-old in particular loves to run around the field catching 11 paratroopers, falling all over the field. So,
Yeah, when you do that,
but
you have to
we'll
count them before you put it in, so you know you have them all when you get out.
yeah. Well, we have lost them and then found them stuck to the board on the field later. Somebody found it when they were hunting, found them when hunting for a lost aircraft.
That's
So,
funny.
but so I'll be bringing that one for sure,
Good.
because it's a lot of fun. And you know what? If I stick it into the ground again, I've crashed it a few times and repaired it. But if I stick it into the ground and it's done, hey, so be it. We can cut some foam and we'll make another one. And maybe we'll paint it orange again. Maybe we won't. Maybe it'll be green next time. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
the Mean Green Machine. That's you know
I have a
what?
Spitfire. I have a Master Series Spitfire that's going to be green. I'm gonna do it like British racing, like
Nice.
a classic British Lotus race car, with
Yeah,
the racing green with the yellow highlights. So I think
perfect.
that'll be fun.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Well, I think we've reached our time limit, maybe even our welcome. I hope not. Um, I'm going to let you roll this out. You've done this so many times, Joe. I think you don't even have to think about it.
I
But
do still. At some point, I lost my role, and so now every time I have to go down a mental checklist.
okay.
I think it's when you and I started bantering about who was going to do it, and
Yeah.
suddenly I lost it. And I don't know.
Well, if you want me to try it, I can.
Do
But
you
maybe
want to?
Lee, you can do it, right? How many times do you listen? Don't answer that. Here's
I'd have to unmute him first.
okay. Let's see. So if you want to reach out to either of us, you can reach out to both of us at aviationrcnoob at gmail.com. You can reach out to Joe at aviationrcnoob.com. You can reach out to me, Matthew, at aviationrcnoob.com. We want to thank our patrons for helping us out every week and paying the bills. It's a big help, and we appreciate the support. If you want to join them, you can go to Patreon at /aviationrcnoob to join them and join helping us if you like what we do and you find it valuable. If not, you can join our Discord. We'll have a link in the bottom of the show notes. Join our community. It's going to dump you into the general server. Go up to the rules. Give a little thumbs up to show us that you've read it, and then you'll have access to all the things. There's all the topics. There are people who are here active every day trying to help other noobs kind of get back in the air, talking shop, talking projects. And every month we host a build night that Joe and I try to get to. At least one of us will be there. And I'm almost always building something ridiculous. And I'm always interested to see what you are doing. Pull us up to your build table, talk to us, see what's going on. I think that's about it. So I want to say thank everybody for listening. And I am Matt. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time. Joe?
Nice job, Matt. I'm Joe. Brian, say bye.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for helping out.
We'll see you guys next time. Okay. Ready to get into it? Get all the frogs out of your throat.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Okay, let's see if we can get into this. Not make fools of ourselves.
Too late.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Aviation RC Noob podcast. My name is Joe.
I'm Matt. And we have with us special guest Brian Phillips.
Say guest for me again.
Guest.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw you talking, but it didn't go through.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Which is fine. Fortunately, yeah,
Nobody wants to listen to me anyway.
Round 2. Matt, if you can do the Grest mess up again, that'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah, of course. That'll be easy. I'll just be myself.